She stood at the ranch gate barefoot, trembling, a sack tied over her tiny body like a prison. Dust clung to her tears. Her lips cracked as she whispered, "We'll be quiet if you take them off." The old rancher, hardened by grief and silence, had seen cattle torn by coyotes, storms rip through barns, even buried his own son, but he had never seen something that stopped his heart cold like this. Two little girls, silent, covered in bruises, wrapped in burlap like discarded things, and they weren't just scared of a man, they were running from something darker, something that stitched pain into their skin and silence into their souls. What he would uncover after removing those sacks wouldn't just break his heart. It would drag him into a nightmare no bullet could kill. A nightmare that wasn't done with them, and one that had already started watching him. This isn't just a story of a rancher and two girls. It's a story of secrets buried in cloth, of terror that doesn't speak but watches, and of a man who dared to see the truth behind the thread. Don't blink. Because once you do, they're already there. Before we begin this heartbreaking journey, take a moment to subscribe to Legacy Ignited. These aren't just stories. They're voices of the forgotten, the broken, and the brave. Like the video if you believe some truths deserve to be heard. And follow so you never miss the next soul-stirring tale. The sun beat down mercilessly on the open plains of Arizona, where the dust curled in slow spirals and silence wrapped the world in a strange tension. Earl Maddox, a weathered rancher in his late 50s, had lived alone on his land for more than a decade. After losing his wife and only son in a carriage accident, he had closed his heart to the world, burying his pain beneath long days of hard labor and the unbroken routine of ranch life. He didn't speak to strangers. He didn't go into town unless he had to. And he sure didn't open his gate to anyone. Not until that sweltering Tuesday afternoon. Earl was mending the fence line when he spotted something moving on the horizon. Two small figures, barely visible through the heat waves, stumbling closer. His hand instinctively reached for the rifle slung across his back. Strangers didn't just wander out here, not unless they were lost. Or hiding. As the figures neared, his frown deepened. They were children. Girls, maybe 9 or 10. Dressed in filthy sacks with holes cut out for their arms and heads. Their bare feet were torn and bleeding. Their faces were caked with dust, but what stopped him cold was their silence. They didn't speak, didn't cry, just stood at the gate, staring through the wire, clutching each other as if letting go would mean disappearing forever. Earl approached slowly, rifle still slung but his guard high. "You girls lost?" he asked, voice low, gravelly. No response. Only wide, hollow eyes locked on him. Then one of them, the smaller one, stepped forward and whispered in a voice so cracked it barely carried, "We'll be quiet if you take off our sacks." Earl's brow furrowed. The words didn't make sense. Not in that heat, not in this place. "What did you say?" he asked. The girl looked at him, tears streaking down her dusty face. "Please, just take them off. We won't say a word, we promise." He stared at them, trying to understand. Their clothes, or what passed for clothes, were nothing but burlap feed sacks tied with twine. Something was off, horribly off. After a long pause, he opened the gate. "Come in." They didn't move at first. He had to coax them in gently, leading them toward the shade of the barn where a water barrel stood. They drank like they hadn't had a drop in days. Then they sat, still silent, trembling. Earl couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He knelt in front of them, speaking softly. "You want me to take off the sacks? Why?" The older girl flinched, looked away. The younger nodded, biting her lip. "You'll see," she whispered. "Then you'll know." He hesitated. Something in his gut twisted. Still, his rough fingers untied the first knot at the smaller girl's shoulder. As the sack fell away, his breath caught. Bruises, deep purple, black scars, welts. Her tiny frame was covered in them. Old wounds and fresh ones layered like a map of suffering. He pulled back instantly, horror dawning on his face. Then the older girl stood and let her sack fall too. Same marks, same evidence of torment. It wasn't just neglect. This was systematic. This was evil. Earl staggered back, breath shallow. Who did this to you?" and neither answered. But the way their eyes darted toward the road, the way they huddled together again, told him everything. They were running from someone who wore a familiar face. "I'm not letting you go back," he said, his voice low with fury. "You're safe now, I swear it." But the girls shook their heads. "He's coming." The older one said, "He always finds us, always." Earl's heart pounded. They didn't speak. That night, Earl didn't sleep. He locked the doors, loaded his rifle, and kept watch from the porch. The wind howled across the plains like it was carrying whispers from the past. He thought of his wife, of his son, of how helpless he had been to save them. But this time, he swore, he wouldn't fail. Just before dawn, headlights appeared in the distance. A truck, black, no plates. It stopped at the edge of the property. A tall man stepped out, his silhouette rigid, purposeful. He didn't knock, he didn't call out, just stood there, staring at the house. Earl stood too, rifle in hand, heart thudding like a war drum. Then the girls came to the door, pale, eyes wide. "That's him," the younger one whispered. Earl stepped outside, closed the door behind him. The man spoke first. "You've got something that belongs to me." Earl didn't flinch. "I think you've got that backwards." The man's eyes narrowed. "They're mine. They're not property." Earl snapped. "They're children, and from the looks of it, you lost the right to call yourself their anything." The man took a step forward. Earl raised the rifle. "I buried my family once," he said, voice shaking with rage. "I'm not burying two more because of a monster like you." There was silence. Then, without another word, the man turned and got back in his truck. The headlights vanished into the dust. Inside, the girls clung to each other, to Earl, to safety they never knew existed. And as the sun rose over the horizon, spilling golden light across the ranch, Earl realized that this broken moment, these broken children, had given him something he thought was long dead: purpose. But little did he know, the truth behind who these girls really were, and what they were hiding, had only begun to surface. And when it did, it wouldn't just shatter the quiet peace of his ranch, it would shatter him. Earl thought it was over. After the man in the black truck disappeared into the dust, the weight pressing down on his chest seemed to lift. He kept the girls close, fed them, watched them sleep curled up on a bed of hay in the barn, afraid even of his own house's walls. He gave them his wife's old quilt, laid it over them like armor. For the first time in years, the silence around the ranch felt peaceful, not haunting. But 2 days later, things began to shift. It started when the younger girl, Lily, woke screaming in the middle of the night, clawing at her arms, sobbing, "Don't sew me in again, please." Earl rushed to her, heart hammering, holding her as she trembled and gasped. The older one, June, sat beside her, rubbing her back with eyes that held no surprise, only weariness. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. Earl didn't sleep again that night. He sat beside them, listening to every whimper, every broken word that escaped their lips. Something more was buried beneath those bruises, something far deeper than pain. By morning, Earl made a decision. He hitched up the wagon and took them into town, not to the sheriff. He didn't trust that kind of justice anymore, but to the town nurse, Miss Hattie, who delivered his son years ago. She took one look at the girls and went pale. "My God," she whispered, "where did they come from? They showed up at my gate. Earl said, wearing sacks, said they'd be quiet if I took them off." Hattie's hands shook as she examined their backs, the strange stitching scars that lined their skin. Tiny, crude seams along their shoulders and arms, as if someone had tried to restrain them inside their clothing. It wasn't just abuse, it was ritual, dehumanizing. They were being kept, she said softly, eyes full of horror, like livestock. Earl clenched his fists. They are not going back, ever. But as they walked out of Hattie's, a man across the street froze when he saw the girls. His face went pale and he disappeared into the general store. Earl noticed, so did June. That was him. She whispered, "One of the helpers, the one who closed the sacks." Earl didn't hesitate. He strode into the store, rifle slung but eyes burning. The man had already slipped out the back. That night, Earl boarded up every window on the ranch house. He knew the storm hadn't passed, it had only begun. The girls wouldn't say much. but every word they gave him painted a darker picture of a house on the edge of the canyon where children were taken after being unwanted, trained to be silent, obedient, unseen. They were forced to wear sacks to strip away identity. Anyone who cried too loud was sewn in tighter. Some never came back from that. Lily said the sacks were punishment, but also protection. If they stayed inside them, he wouldn't take them apart. Earl didn't understand what that meant until the third night. The dogs barked first, frantic, pacing. Then the wind picked up, not like a storm, but like a scream. Earl grabbed the rifle and stepped outside. And there by the barn stood the black truck. No headlights, no engine, just there, and someone, or something, beside it. It wasn't the man from before. This one was taller, leaner, pale as bone and wrapped in black, with hands too long and eyes that didn't blink. He stared at the barn, didn't move, didn't breathe. Earl raised his rifle. You picked the wrong night. But as he fired, the figure vanished, gone. The next morning, the sacks were back, neatly folded on the barn steps, with twine coiled atop them like snakes. Lily screamed. June tried to run. Earl threw them into the fire. But that night, the barn doors opened on their own. Earl locked the girls inside the house, barricaded the door, and sat by them all night. As dawn rose, the air grew thick, heavy, as if the land itself held its breath. June finally broke the silence. We didn't just run from people, she said, voice shaking. We ran from something else. He's not a man anymore. He wears skin like it's borrowed. Lily nodded. He called us his dolls, said if we behaved, we'd never have to know what was under the sacks. But we saw. One night we peeked. She trembled. It wasn't human. Earl sat still, mind racing. What was it? He asked softly. June's voice was hollow. It was all stitched together, like he'd taken pieces of others and made himself. Earl felt the air grow colder, the shadows stretch longer. He realized then, this wasn't just cruelty. It was possession, obsession. He wasn't just hiding the girls from a man. He was hiding them from something that didn't belong to this world, and it wanted them back. The final sign came just after noon. Smoke rose in the east. Earl took his scope and saw the old canyon house, burning. Flames licked the sky, black and furious, but no one in town reported it. No one even seemed to notice. The place the girls had described was being erased, as if it had never existed, as if someone was covering tracks not just from men, but from memory. Earl knew they couldn't stay here anymore. He had to get them somewhere safe, somewhere beyond reach. But June looked at him with tired eyes and whispered, "You don't understand. He doesn't need roads. He finds what's his. He smells fear and unfinished pain." Earl's jaw clenched. "You're not his. You never were." But as the sun fell again and the air filled with that impossible silence, he saw it, not the truck. Not a man, but sacks, dozens of them, hung from the trees at the edge of his ranch, swaying gently in the wind. And beneath each one, a pair of eyes, watching, waiting. Earl didn't sleep. He sat in the rocking chair with the rifle across his lap, eyes fixed on the edge of the woods where the sacks hung like silent ghosts. Every now and then, the wind would shift and the trees would creak, not with age, but with pressure, as if something moved among them. The girls didn't speak. They lay under the quilt, eyes wide, fingers clenched. June's hand held Lily's tightly, but even in that closeness, they looked lost, like pieces of themselves had been left in that burning house. At sunrise, the sacks were gone, no footprints, no signs of struggle. Just dew on the grass and silence so heavy it pressed against the walls. Earl knew what it meant. This thing, whatever it was, wasn't done. He took the girls into town one last time, but no one remembered their faces. Not even Miss Hattie. When he asked about the black truck or the canyon house, people stared blankly, as if he were speaking in a language they didn't understand. Reality had started to fold around them, like the truth was being erased. He didn't know where to go. All he knew was they had to keep moving. He packed supplies, loaded the wagon, and wrapped the girls in new clothes. Real ones, not sacks. He promised them safety, even if he didn't believe it anymore. As they rolled down the trail, June looked back and whispered, "It doesn't matter where we go. We'll always carry him with us." Earl gripped the reins tighter. No, he only lives if you let him. But he knew the truth. The horror wasn't just behind them. It was within them. That night, they stopped near an old stream under open sky. Earl made a fire, sat between the girls, and told them stories of his son. How he used to catch fireflies and sleep with his boots on just in case a horse wandered off at night. The girls smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the flame's glow. It was the first time Earl saw light in them, fragile but real. Then Lily reached into her coat and pulled something out, a single thread. Twisted, blackened, rough, she held it out. "He left this on the porch this morning." Earl took it, heart sinking. The thread smelled of smoke and blood and something older. He threw it into the fire. It didn't burn. It coiled, moved. June stepped forward. "You see now, he's not chasing us anymore. He's waiting for us to break." Earl stood, firelight flickering on his face. "Then he'll wait forever." He dug a hole by the stream, took the thread, the last sack, and buried them beneath the earth. He carved a stone with his knife. "You are not his." The girls stood beside him, quiet, watching, and when he turned to them, their shoulders relaxed for the first time. Not because they believed he could protect them from what had hunted them, but because he did something no one else had ever done. He saw them, not as broken things, but as daughters.